First of all, I want to apologize. I had a family emergency, so I had to do the meeting via telephonically. So I want to apologize to the community. And at this time, I call the regular board meeting to order. Can I please have the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, God, indivisible, justice.
Thank you. Okay, roll call.
Governing Board President, Ms. Patricia Jimenez.
Present.
Governing Board Vice President, Ms. Maria Guzman.
Present.
Governing Board Member, Mr. Rudy Santa Cruz.
Present.
Governing Board Member, Ms. Maria Hernandez.
Present.
And Governing Board Member, Mr. Harry Garwell.
Here.
Thank you. At this time, approval of the March 27, 2025 regular governing board meeting minutes agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, call for the vote. Julia, you're gonna have to let me know if it passes.
I'm sorry, I had a hard time hearing. What was that?
I can't see if the motion passed. You're gonna have to let me know when the motion passes.
Motion carries. Motion carries.
Okay, the motion carries. Okay, thank you. Okay, next approval of March 6, 2025 regular governing board meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any changes, discussions? Hearing none, call for the vote. Did the motion carry?
Not yet.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have governing board reports. First is Mr. Santa Cruz.
Thank you. I want to welcome everybody here. I appreciate everybody coming. Like most of you, I'm just as frustrated and angry about all the situation that's going on. But it's not by coincidence that a lot of schools are coming under receivership or have to close schools. Number one reason for that is the state legislature. Conveniently, they came here and pointed a finger at us. And what are they doing about their job? Whichever research you do, we're dead last in school finance. Mississippi is even ahead of us as one of the poorest states in the country. They're 15 in finance. We're dead last. So that's one of the reasons that we're fighting year to year to get funding to run our schools. Second is the housing. For those of you who didn't know, I was a constable for a number of years, the West Magdala Justice Court. The housing in the Isaac School District is horrendous. We have a lot of slumlords. Most of our parents cannot afford going to a respectable apartment complex because, first of all, their credit's low. Second, they can't afford it. So they're forced to live in a subpar housing that we have here. So accumulation of the state legislation not funding our schools and housing, as you can see from the other school district, we have at least a half a dozen school districts that are also closing schools is because parents are just moving because they can't find affordable housing. So these are some of the things that we are concerned about. Uh, 2 years ago, I think Mr. Gerwer brought up that situation about housing, but since then nothing has moved. We can't seem to have enough affordable housing for our economically disadvantaged parents that we have here in our district. And so that's my concern. I mean, on top of everything, it's just a matter of everything coming together and making this a horrible situation. So hopefully some of you parents can talk to your legislatures and at least uh, have a glimmer of hope of trying to fund the schools in an appropriate manner. So that's my report. Thank you.
Ms. Hernandez?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Good evening, everyone. I want to thank everyone again for attending and being here this evening. It is a lot of frustration. It's a lot of heartbreaking, the situations that is going on within our district and within the state, because there's so many being affected nowadays. Um, I also it was brought to my attention that uh, we have some concern for, I guess, the new cleaning company that has came into our schools, that the schools are not being kept up to their cleaning standards. And I know that we're under a savings funds or whatever, but jeopardizing our students' safety and is not the way to go to save a buck. I mean, we need to have our rooms clean, and um, I understand there's even parents and uh, staff bringing supplies from their own home to clean up the schools because they're only being cleaned twice a week, or being kept up, even little notes left saying that we didn't get to do your room, we'll do it tomorrow. So, these are very crucial and important things that need to be done on a daily basis and need to be for the protection of our students and our staff, that everything is being kept up. Our bathrooms need to be sterilized and sanitized on a regular basis for the safety of all of our staff and students. So I would like to see, or the person that's assigned to this job that's doing the uh, cleaning at our schools, to come and give a little report on what days and how they're going about serving our schools, and how our schools are going to be kept up to a safety cleaning limit. So that's quite a concern for me, and I don't know how many it is for many of you out there, but I know it's quite uncomfortable for many of you to go and face your classrooms and they're not being kept up. So I would like to see a little responsive from the company or whoever's now in charge of the cleaning crew. So that concludes my meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Garwell.
Yes, Madam President. I just wanted to share a couple of
Excuse
things
me,
with the
Mr. Guerra.
community.
She's
Sorry?
get me.
Oh, I'm sorry. So, Guzman.
Sorry, Ms. Jimenez, I was next.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Ms. Guzman.
I just want to welcome everyone here. I have no report.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Garwell.
Yes, Madam President. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And I know it's getting a little warm outside, and I think that we're going to see some change in the weather, but I think it's also reflective of some of the things that we're going through here in our school district as well. So I just want to share a couple of things. Last evening, I was invited to an immigration coalition meeting held by the Chavez Foundation. And on the agenda, we had a legislative update provided by Senator Catherine Miranda, who shared the latest movements on immigration bills at the state and the likelihood of passing. Fortunately, right now, there's only one that is still very, very much moving forward that could be detrimental to our district as well as others around. the city. Also provided was a legal observer training, special training provided by the National Lawyers Guild. And part of that was because the other groups, working groups, updated the strategies to train and teach our community on how to protect themselves from immigration, law enforcement, unjustly rounded up people of color. Just to give you an example, 2 days ago, there was a university student in Massachusetts going to Tufts University, and she was from Turkey, and she was here on a student visa, and she was approached by men in black hoodies and masks, and she was grabbed and taken right off the street without any charges. And then they found out that later on she had been transported 2,000 miles to Louisiana, and all of that because she wrote an article a year ago that was reflective of the things that were happening in Pakistan and Israel. And so as a result of that, she was taken up by ICE right off the street. The video is available, and we shared that last night. And we saw that there was a natural type of coalescing of people coming together in protest. And I think those are the things that we need to start to look at and be concerned about, but also to train our community. And that's why it was important to have, the observer training last night. And then on a lighter note, today I was invited to celebrate the 21st anniversary of Latino Leadership Network by the Honorable Mickey Ibarra, Chairman of Latino Leadership Network, and Ruben Alvarez, CEO of the National Latino Leaders Network, and to attend the 7th Latino Leadership Luncheon that recognized Honorable U.S. Representative Tony Cardenas for the Eagle Leadership Award and the Honorable Adrian Fontes, Arizona Secretary of State, the Chairman's Award. I share this because I wanted to share this event because the remarks made by Representative Cardenas really reflected on the challenges and pains our communities go through, which really goes back to our personal stories and struggles and triumphs, which should also give us hope for the Isaac Elementary School District to come out in a better position in the very near future. With that, Madam President, that ends my report.
Thank you. Hopefully you guys could hear me. It's hard from being here. Just really quick. I would like to address both some positive development and some of our challenges we still face. First, the positive, that it's something that seems to have been missed in our commotion associated with the receivership. At no point in this crisis have our debts and liabilities exceeded our assets. We have and always have had more than sufficient assets to pay the district's liabilities. What we have experienced, however, is a temporary cash shortfall caused primarily but not exclusively by our grant administrator's failure to timely seek reimbursement under SR2 grants. We confronted with this cash shortfalls, and we did what good business whose assets exceed their liabilities would do. We converted enough of our property assets into cash to pay our bills, and we tightened our belt perhaps even more so when we needed to do so. For some of our politicians, however, these practical solutions appear to have frustrated their larger political agendas. They still hope to use Isaac's short-term cash shortage as an excuse to close many Isaac schools and push more of our students into private schools owned by campaign donors. At our last meeting, I called out State Representative Mike Gress along with our own board member, Harry Garbo, who has voted in favor of every single Isaac School Board budget except the last one, for trying to pass an egregious bill, HB 26610, that would have retroactively cancel the buyback lease deal with Tolleson School District that saved our district. Another bill that favor will not only force our current publicly elected volunteer board members out of office, but will seek a precluded us from every holding any office or even none of us committed of crime. And just really quick by closing, because I know you can't hear me, the truth is not a public schools are funded equally. When your zip code is in Maryville instead of Scottsdale, a flat tax rate means smaller and slower growing real estate values to generate needed revenue. When the legislature froze property tax in 2015, the freeze disproportionately affected low-income districts like Isaac, whose property value have not increased the way they were at a wealthier areas. As a result of lower revenues caused by these tax freeze and declining enrollment, we do need to tighten our belts, especially when we have sufficient non-cash assets to cover our expenses. I believe we do need to avoid school closure whenever possible. Unfortunately, the receiver has decided to close Moya and PTCO at the end of the school year, and the receiver still controls decisions about any additional closures. While I know the receiver is doing his best, the fact that there's still unanswered questions about funds, taxes, and grants owed to Isaac that need to be resolved before other decisions of closures are made. Treasurer is not making this process easier. He's playing political hardball with our budget. I say now is not the time for political agendas designed to reach healthy, wealthy donors and push political enemies. It is practical solutions, and we just need to remember we need to put our schools, our kids first. That's my report. I'm sorry if you couldn't hear me. So next, we have Superintendent update, Dr. Lily Mesa Lema.
Madam President, members of the board and the ISAC community, thank you for being here tonight. As we continue to navigate a season of both financial challenges and continued opportunities to continue our operations, I remain grateful for the commitment of our community, our staff and families to ensure that ISAC students are at the heart of every decision that we make. Below are a few highlights from the past week that reflect our shared work and the spirit of collaboration across the district, even in the midst of these difficult times. This week, members of the Phoenix Symphony brought the joy of live music to the Esperanza Elementary Schools, delivering a memorable experience for our students. A special thank you to Mr. Macomb and Dr. Robertson for making this opportunity possible. Your efforts created a powerful moment of enrichment and inspiration for our students. Last Friday at Mitchell Elementary came alive with talent and energy during the Disney musical performance. Our students were amazing and truly showcased their abilities. The room was packed with proud families and supporters. A heartfelt thank you to Mr. Garza and the Mitchell team who made this possible, Ms. Lococo, Ms. Liddy, Ms. Youngberg, Ms. Carrillo, and Ms. Sila for championing this effort and bringing such a joyful and enriching opportunity to our school community. Our focus on student achievement continues to be intentional. School teams engaged in evaluating and reflecting around 8 focal questions that guide our academic vision and priorities. Last Friday, under Dr. Lawton's leadership, school leaders began the goal setting and action planning process for next year. And I'm excited to see how these school and department level goals take shape as they collaborate with their teams to move forward into next year. On Monday and Tuesday, I met with families to discuss 3 important topics: the implications of receivership for ISAC, the financial adjustments we've made, and our district safety policies. I want to sincerely thank the families and community members who attended the community chats with me, some of whom generously joined me both days. Your thoughtful questions, concerns, and perspectives are invaluable. Your input is the foundation for the next Thursday's public meeting here at IMS at 5 p.m., where we will share key information and next steps on school closures. Thank you for being engaged, informed, and being the voice of our families. As we continue to face complex challenges and extremely difficult decisions, your partnership and willingness to come together as a community will be essential in helping us navigate these challenges together. That, Madam President, concludes my report.
Thank you. Now we have new business information and discussion. Pre-adjustment cash resort, Mr. James Sermon, Chief Financial Officer, information and discussion. Mr. Sermon?
Madam President, members of the board, we have obtained from the Maricopa County Treasurer's Office the cash balances for the district for January and February. This gives us an indication. I've done a summary of the differences. It gives you an idea of where we stand cash-wise. We have a new report coming out next week from the Treasurer's Office. There is a difference between budget and cash. The budget is set by a formula. Unfortunately, in some cases, the budget, as you've learned, does not represent the amount of cash we have to spend. The frozen tax rates in prior years obviously had an impact on cash. And because the district continued to spend to the level of the calculated budgets instead of the cash, it created pressures on the cash accounts within the district. It would have been nice if the legislature had addressed this several years ago, this problem, but they didn't. And the district continued to spend budget which had no cash to back it up. We have been busy since we got here paying off past bills. These bills dated back 2 and 3 months prior to January. We have been paying vendors as fast as possible. As you can see, the cash balance in the M&O account decreased. The ending balance at the end of February was almost $1 million. Again, this is paying off past due invoices. In capital outlay, you can see the difference between the recovery of the ESSER funds, which were received in February, which reduced the negative capital accounts expenditures by almost $6 million. As we move down into other money, it's important to realize that at January, end of January, we received, that reflects the money that we received from the Tolleson Union high school district's transaction. And that's where those funds were placed. That gave us a positive cash balance, which allowed us to continue to operate and pay our bills. So it actually benefited from the other accounts that we need to operate from, which is M&O. So it acted like a compensating balance, which means we had a pool of cash from different sources. The treasurer saw a positive pool of cash in total and continued to cover our bills and our payrolls. When we get down to E-rate, you can see that at the end of January, E-rate had a negative balance of 6.5 or $6.6 million. E-rate is something that funds certain selected items within the district from the federal government's universal fund. It's actually a fee that appears on your phone bill. And everybody pays a fee. It goes into this fund, and we're allowed to buy certain electronic equipment, such as computer switches and devices, wireless devices, point-end devices for our students in the classroom. Unfortunately, many of the over expenditures within cash and possibly other accounts were put into the E-rate fund prior to and including January of this year. This was an account that funds were moved, expenditures were drawn out of, but there's no way the E-rate funds would have ever paid that type of an expenditure. So we have been busy cleaning up the E-rate fund, and we've been moving those over expenditures to areas that they're properly recorded and should have been, and one of them is the capital account. So we've been busy trying to get the accounts and the expenditures in the accounts that they belong in. In addition to that, Civic Center, which is usually a cash resource for districts, Civic Center is where the monies go for renting short-term rentals of the school buildings to outside groups. This fund also is used to cover some of the over expenditures, and we've been working to get that balance down from $1.2 million to it's now $831,000. It's hard to replace these funds. M&O doesn't have the money. We don't have a lot of facility rentals, here and there on Sundays to churches and so forth. Those are usually the ways that you can do it, along with renting your schools to other groups, outside groups and clubs. So these are difficult cash hurdles that we have to go through to try to get the cash balances in line where they belong, so that the county treasurer, when we write checks for payroll and we write checks for accounts payable, we have the cash to make the payments. They aren't looking at budget near as much as they're looking at cash now. We are still within budget. We're not in an overspend budget as of today, However, we also have to keep a eye on the cash because the cash is king right now with the county treasurer's office. And unfortunately, cash is now becoming the key in Maricopa County. Districts will not be able to spend negative cash in most accounts other than grants. They will stop the payment of the vouchers that pay the bills. So that everybody now is playing by the same rules. Not only is ISAC in those rules, but so are every other district. They are bound by their cash balance. They are watched very carefully if they go negative cash in any fund. Doesn't mean that they're not allowed to. They've just got some explaining to do. The ESSER money, the recovery of the ESSER money, and the compensating balance from Tolleson Union were probably the two largest things that basically set us on, at least for the time being, a path forward through the troubles that we've been through. We have state aid that we've got coming in. It's never enough, as somebody mentioned earlier about funding the schools, but it is helping us continue the operations. We've made many changes, as you well know, within staffing, within custodial services, food services, and so forth. They've all helped this year. It was simply not enough, fast enough to give us extra breathing room. It will be a benefit next year, moving into the 2026 school year. If you have any questions, be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions?
Yes, Madam President.
Mr. Gallo?
Mr. Servin, and understanding that, there is a difference between cash and budget, right? And so I'm glad that you explained that because that's been a little bit of I think, a confusing point to a lot of folks, including people that have been in school finance for a long time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I'm glad that we were able to pull that up. Just a couple of questions for you on the ESSER funds. I know when we did the ESSER 3 and the last obligations we were submitting was right around the end of the fiscal year, which would have been September of 2024. Have we been able to get any reimbursements from that, or is that just obligated, or where are those ESSER 3 funds? I think it was $7.24 million. That was the last tranche that we put in for obligations.
So the end result of the ESSER funds is while we did have, shall we say, available budget and approval within the ESSER funds, a lot of the expenditures, in fact, millions of dollars worth of expenditures were not in the ESSER budget. There was budget available, but they were in different categories. So the problem that the district got into is that they were buying things that there simply was no authorized and approved budget line item in the ESSER grant. A good example, anecdotally, the first couple of days I was here, I was told that there was $7.5 million put in supplies. Supplies, basically, when you start thinking about it, with some exceptions, is basically paper and pencils. I mean, there's a lot of things in supplies, but those are the two that come to mind. We could not adjust the grants. They had already closed. The ESSER grants, both 2 and 3, had been closed as of September. We could not adjust the budget, and we certainly could not come up with $7.5 million worth of supply expenditures that qualified for that category. So while there was budget capacity in the ESSER grant, we did not follow the budget lines. We spent money in other categories that were not approved for that much money or not approved at all. And therefore that money was not recovered. It was left on the table and closed.
Okay. So so essentially we lost that.
Yes.
Okay. My second question is in regards to, I know in April, we're going to be looking at tax revenues. Are there any possibilities of losing those tax revenues, or is that something that simply will come, and how would that help us with our cash position?
The tax revenues that do come in April, obviously we're waiting for that anxiously as it starts to come in April and May. What ends up happening there is that goes into the cash pool.
Okay.
And that helps and relieve some of the negative cash or the expenditures as we make them during the late part of March and in April. and in May, that those tax revenues do help there along with state aid.
Okay, is there any, well, maybe you can't answer this, but working with the legislature in past days and, different years, I've seen how the legislature actually comes in and sometimes they'll sweep up money. Is there any opportunity for the state to come in and sweep up our April tax revenue funds?
No, the state's usually gone. The state made the mistake several years ago of going in at budget districts that had a large cash balance, and they would go in and sweep the funds. That proved to be politically difficult and challenging, and they've never done it since. And this was about, I'm going to say 15 years ago that they swept the excess funds. This district doesn't have any worry about that because we have nothing really for them to sweep at this point in time.
Okay, very good. Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Anybody else from the board?
Yes, Madam President.
Mr. Santa Cruz?
Yeah, I have a question. When we do the grants, was that because the paperwork wasn't submitted on time, or were some errors involved in that? Could you tell us exactly what happened to those grants that we didn't get? They were closed out, which you mentioned.
Well, the closeout period was a set date and time, and in order to first, before the grant closes, you have a month or so to make last minute changes to the grant. th- that opportunity was obviously not taken advantage of. That requires both the grant person and the business office to collaborate together and make a determination of what needed to be moved. There was essentially the communication did not occur from the business office. There was indications that the categories within the grant were overspent, and no action was taken to resolve that before the deadline.
Is there a possibility that you can have like a fail-safe system so we won't get into this mess as we did with the grants?
Yes, we are putting in place, and for next year, we will have dead stops within the accounting system. No one will be able to overspend any category. We're talking down to the line item. We're not talking just a ESSER grant in general or a large grant. We're talking line by line. They cannot go red. It will stop the process. And in the future, the grants people will be working under my office. And so there'll be a unified effort to make sure that everything is in sync between grants and the expenditures and the revenues coming in.
Yeah, I'm just surprised we didn't have that before, to stop that. But it's an oversight, it's an error. We're humans. I understand that.
It's
But,
probably been a learning experience for everybody.
yeah, I know that I work for a nonprofit. We're basically 100% grants. And so if you don't cross your T's and dot your I's, you're not going to get that money. They can be a pain sometimes, although they do help, but sometimes the paperwork involved is horrendous.
We are very good at the paperwork. This district has amazed me at how well we do take advantage of the grants that are available to districts that are in difficult situations. And we've been extremely blessed compared to a lot of districts that I've seen, and we are able to get the grants. It's just now we've got to do a better job of managing the grants and making sure that we get our money quickly and on a timely basis.
Thank you very much. That helped me out.
Thank
quite a
you.
bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, Mr. Servin, I have a couple of questions. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. It's a little difficult sometimes.
I'll just do 3 questions. Is there, just clarification, is there enough cash coming in for the rest of the year to cover our payroll?
At this time, it appears that there's enough to cover the payrolls, to make those payrolls every time. I can't make a certain statement when it comes to paying all the bills at this point in time.
Okay, and the other one, so we do, is there enough cash to cover all of our unpaid invoices?
At this point, we can't determine that. We're in the process right now of closing out open purchase orders. We have a lot of purchase orders. Obviously, you cut a purchase order with the expectation that you might have to pay something down the road. A good example would be, we know that during the year we have to buy toilet paper, we have to buy fuel, we have to buy services, we have to have money for people, mechanics to fix our vehicles. What we do now, it's all districts do this time of year, they start closing out purchase orders, and that basically relieves the expected liability. Those are known as encumbrances. We are in the process of doing that, and by next week, we will have all non-essential purchase orders closed. That will give us a bigger picture of where we stand as far as expectations from vendors, how much we're going to receive from vendors. We have made a lot of work in the outside consultants for special education. We were seeing a tremendous amount of money going to third parties to service our special needs kids. In some of those cases, I'm not a special ed expert. I can't pass judgment on it, but I do believe that for all intents and purposes, we probably were paying more than we should have. These vendors were definitely doing well business-wise at our expense. So as we close these out, we've just closed a big batch out. We'll have a better picture of where we think we're going to end up as far as total expenditures versus the budget by the end of the year.
Okay, that was my last question. So we are going to be getting quarterly updates for the 2025 budget. And so just real quick, how much is the district over budget? And will the board vote on a revised budget showing all the reductions?
I did not hear that clear enough.
So how much is the district over budget?
At this point, I don't recall what the numbers were for over budget. We're in the process now of verifying everything from the future payrolls through the end of the school year to all of the vendors and so forth. So I do not have that answer for you.
Okay, and the last question, will the board vote on a revised budget showing all of the reductions?
Would the board vote on the board will be asked to vote on a revised budget by May 15th. We have to bring the budget. In fact, they actually they've got legislation, might have to even go a little bit early, even on the proposed budget for next year. So the legislature's fooling with those dates as we speak, as far as what dates they're due. But for right now, May 15th, the board has to approve the final revised budget for school year 25.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, next we have non-renewal resulting from right sizing, Ms. Silvia Carrizosa, Executive Director of Employee Relations. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Carrizosa?
Test. I think it's on. Okay. Good evening, Madam President, governing board members, Interim Superintendent Dr. Lily Mesalema, and the Isaac community. As part of our ongoing efforts to ensure the district's financial stability, we continue to make difficult but yet necessary decisions under receivership. Tonight, I'm presenting non-renewals due to the organizational right-sizing. These decisions were made by carefully reviewing our district's needs, including enrollment trends, program alignment, and overall staffing requirements. The board members have the list before you, and I'm happy with the team to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, really quick, we just want to recognize that the right sizing impacts our dedicated staff, and we are committed to prioritizing their return to available positions whenever possible. Is there any questions from the board? Okay, hearing none, call for the vote. Did
Motion
pass?
carries.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you, Ms. Guzman. I'll just wait for your call, Ms. Guzman. Next, approval of the 2025-2026 school calendar. Ms. Silvia Carrizosa, Executive Director of Employee Relations, and Ms. Andrea Valencia, IDA President. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, Ms. Carrizosa.
Good evening once again, Madam President, board members, Interim Superintendent Dr. Lily Mesalema, and Isaac Community. I stand before you with Ms. Andrea Valencia, our IDEA President. She and I will be presenting on the calendar committee work for your review and consideration for the 25-26 school year calendar. The purpose of the committee was to develop an academic calendar that was fitting for, of course, our staffs, our students, and our Isaac community. We had a diverse group of stakeholders that we appreciated their time, their energy, and their effort that allowed us to collaborate in decision-making process that was good for the greater good of Isaac community. And I want to take this time to recognize them and thank them for their time and effort. Through the committee work, the discussions were centered, as I stated before, on the needs of our students, our staff, and of course, our community. From that work, a hot topic that came out was our Thanksgiving holiday week. That is right now, option A, as you see there, typically a 3-day holiday break for our staff and students. And what came out of the committee work is looking at that week as a full week, a holiday. And some of the reasons for that was because we've seen high student and staff absenteeism, rates in regards to, obviously they take time off, they go out of town. And so that was some of the hot topics that were surrounding the two different options here. How we gathered the information, as we have typically done through our Thought Exchange platform that allowed for the individuals to share their options and really just give us input to this decision-making process. This platform allowed for all to have an opportunity to select their option of preference. I apologize in advance. I know board members, you have the data a bit bigger in front of you. I apologize to the community that this is the data extracted right from our platform, so it didn't, obviously you can't see it here, but what we have here is the numbers of individuals who participated in this survey from all our from all our sites, from K-8. And so we had staff participation and parent participation here. So we thank those individuals for their input and time.
As you can see, our participation groups, we had 52% from our parent platform as well as 48% from staff.
It's clicking. It wouldn't go the opposite.
Sorry, just trying to end the presentation. As for the calendar that was preferred, 40% have voted for option A, and with the result of going with proposing option B with 60%.
Thank you, Ms. Valencia. Additional data points here, you will see one of the questions was how satisfied are you with the proposed calendar? And overall, the overall satisfaction rate was 56% in regards to the proposed calendars. So in conclusion, we'd like to, as members of the committee, recommend option B for your review and approval, as this, based on the survey, was what the community also elected as the calendar of their option. We realize that obviously because we take that week off in Thanksgiving, if approved by you, of course, it would give us a last day of school, May 27th. And then I know the board members, you have the two different calendars there before you. Those were also shared with the community members as they made their vote for their preferred calendar. That concludes our presentation, but we're happy to entertain any questions that the board may have for us.
Thank you. Is there any questions from the board?
Yes, Madam President.
Mr.
So which is the
Santa Cruz?
option that the teachers want? And parents?
Thank you, Mr. Santa Cruz. Option B is the calendar option that got the highest votes, which would provide the full week of Thanksgiving break off.
Madam President?
Mr. Guerrero?
Yeah, it's Carizosa. In looking at option B, I do see that, we get an additional 2 days for the Thanksgiving holidays, which I think is very, very good, right? Based on the information that you have. My question is, if we're only doing 2 more days on Thanksgiving, why do we have 5 additional days at the end of the school year? We went from 22 to 27, and we're only taking 2 more extra days off.
Go.
So those two additional, so the 2 days from the week during Thanksgiving week, they just got moved to the end of the year. So it's Memorial Day weekend. So the 22nd is a Friday, so Memorial Day is a 3-day weekend, which then causes for those 2 additional days at the end of the year. So it's just those 2 days moved at the end of the year rather than it's just a weekend that you see as a break.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. When you just look at the numbers, right? Obviously, you want to ask the question because that didn't make sense, but now that you indicated Memorial Weekend, yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Very valid question, and that's the Memorial Day. So thank you, Ms. Valencia, for stepping in. Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, hearing none, call for the vote.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Do I have an item to approve the whole consent agenda?
So moved.
There a second?
Second.
Call for the vote.
May I please have the second motion repeated? I'm sorry, I had a hard time hearing. Thank you.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have call to the public.
Madam President, this evening we have a few requests to address the governing board. I would like to remind the board and the public that personal attacks upon board members, staff personnel, or other persons in attendance or absent by individuals who address the board are discouraged. Presenters are cautioned that statements or representations concerning others that convey an unjustly unfavorable impression may subject the presenter to civil action for defamation. Policies KE, KEB, KEC, and KED are provided by the board for disposition of legitimate complaints, including those involving individuals. Upon conclusion of the open call to the public, individual members of the board may respond to any criticism made by an individual who has addressed the board. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. First, we have Patricia Gonzalez.
Good evening. My name is Patricia Gonzalez, a parent of Isabella, a second grader whose future, like every other child here, is directly threatened by the potential closure of our school. We are here tonight because this decision strikes at the heart of their education, their social and emotional development, and the very fabric of our community. Let's be clear, Isaac Online Prep Academy has consistently earned a B grade. This educational term is this signifies a highly performing school. This isn't subjective. This is data supported facts. This achievement is not a minor detail. Um, it is a critical factor that we must weigh heavily in in any decision of our school future. Isaac Alang Prep Academy is a highly performing asset, and its closure raises serious concern about the district's priorities. sorry. It is vital that we acknowledge the extraordinary achievements of our children and the school. My daughter Isabella has thrived here, especially in reading, experiencing a profound professional and academic growth. This achievement are not just numbers on a page. They represent the potential of our children and their invaluable role in the school plays in their lives. We must not allow these achievements be part of the past, but a foundation for our future. We need to discuss how we can protect their future and ensure they receive the quality education they deserve, regardless of any potential school closure. I stand here immensely proud of what our children and this school have accomplished. We've witnessed firsthand what this school can do, the the transformative impact it has on our children. To lose this is to lose far more than a program. It is to lose an opportunity, to lose a community, and to lose the very bedrock upon which its achievements are built. The abrupt closure of this high performing online school would inevitably disrupt our students' educational pathways. Online learning provides a vital structure and a support system for many students who flourish in this environment. The potential loss of this tailored environment would inflict significant damage on their emotional and academic well being. Isaac Online Prep Academy provides accessibility, and flexibility that traditional schools simply cannot match, particularly for students with unique learning needs or challenging circumstances. We demand a detailed and justified explanation of the financial rationale behind the potential closure. The current lack of timely and transparent communication has bred anxiety and confusion within our community. We insist on a more inclusive and collaborative decision making process, one that generally involves parents, students, and teachers. These are not mere concerns. They are critical issues that we as parents believe that must be confronted head on. We urge the district to provide clear, unequivocal answers and to work in true partnership with us to develop a solution that places the educational needs of our students above all else. To address these potential concerns of Isaac Online Prep Academy, we propose two key actions. One, immediate joint task
Excuse,
force.
excuse me, you have any final comments?
Marvin? Huh? Oh, final comments?
It's a
Final comment.
it's
Um,
3 minutes. I can't keep time. How much is the time,
do I
Yuvia?
just, okay, do I just go? Okay, final comments. Um, Therefore, I urge every parent, student, and community members here tonight to make immediate and decisive action. We cannot afford to be passive bystanders at this critical moment. I propose that we circulate a petition beginning tonight to demonstrate the overwhelming and widespread support for keeping our school open. This time to act is now, not tomorrow or next week. The time to act is now. Oh, wait, our children's future and the future of our community depends on it. I call upon each and every one of you to protect this institution, and to serve as a cornerstone of our children's lives and the heart of the neighborhood. I propose that we establish a clear and effective system for sharing information and coordinating our efforts, whether through email, dedicated social media, and regular open meetings. Our teachers and staffs are not mere employees. They are invaluable allies in this fight, and we must work closely with them to develop a united and unyielding front. This time to act is now. Our children's future depends on it. Okay.
Thank you.
Next, we have Josie Gutierrez.
Hello, everyone. Governing Board, Dr. Messalina, thank you for letting me address you and the community. Thank you, guys. First of all, I want to know how PT Co got thrown in the midst of closing, because we had heard it was one of the smallest schools. Actually, PT Co is not one of the smallest schools. Out of the 12 schools, PT Co is right in the middle. It's the sixth school. W- Um, it has 436 students, and we have schools that are even less than that. We have Mitchell that has 403. We have Joseph Zito that has 384. We have Esperanza that has 367. So how did PT Cole get thrown up in this mist of closing schools? We have 400 over close to 450 students. So we want to know why and how that came about. We have 52 students, 52% of our population is ELL students. And yet when we address our staff and our communities and parents to come, it's only in Spanish. What about the other populations, our Arabic families, our Somalians, our Somalians, I'm sorry, I'm just a little nervous, but I want to know, how are we reaching out? We have 100 students other than Spanish that go to PTCO. So how are we going to reach them to come to these meetings next week to talk about the closure of PTCO? Because that's important. That's important to me. That's important to my community because I've been a community member for 30 years. So I want to make sure that everything's being addressed and all our families, not just the ones that is convenient to us. Again, at PT Cole, we have 53 students that are special ed. Why was the special ed population the first ones to be cut? When we did this, the whole district has 751 special ed students in self-contained classrooms that are receiving disabilities of all types, and yet they're the first ones to be cut. When I look at the Isaac data online and everything, I'm looking at the online has an enrollment of 188 students, and yet there's only 65 students that are attending the online academy. Why hasn't that been changed? And if people know that there's not all those students attending PTCO, why hasn't that data on our line been changed on the website to address the correct numbers? Because it's not 188, which a couple of weeks ago was 200, over 200. So before we make any other cuts or do anything, we need to look at our numbers and see where they really are and the schools that they belong to, not just where we think. So I'm asking you guys, before you think of PT Cohen cutting any more special ed services, student services, please think of other ways that you can make changes. I ask this of you guys. And please, please do not
Thank,
close PT Co.
thank you.
Next, we have Maria Villalobos. Maria Villalobos. Next, we have Melinda Velasco Jackson.
Good evening, school board staff and community. My name is Melinda Velasco Jackson, and this is only my second and last year at Isaac School District. But I'm not here for me. Due to this financial crisis and the closing of 3 of the schools, I did not get a contract for next year, but that is okay. That only made me go, do better, and get better. I am here in support for the students, families, and teachers of Isaac Online Prep Academy. I am here to express my deep concern regarding the closure of IOPA. This decision not only affects these dedicated educators, but also the students whose lives have been positively shaped by their passion and commitment to learning with these wonderful teachers. As a dedicated advocate for students and families, I urge you to reconsider the decision and recognize the significant impact online education has on many different children who rely on it for their academic success. Online school provides a vital educational alternative for students with diverse needs. Many children thrive in this environment due to medical conditions, which includes mental health, learning differences, bullying concerns, or family circumstances that make traditional schooling difficult. For these students, closing Isaac Online Prep Academy would not just be inconvenience. It could disrupt their learning stability and well-being, Removing this option would force families into situations that may not be in the best interest of their child's education. Isaac Online Prep Academy went from 6 teachers to 2 teachers within 2 weeks. 2 of them who were forced to resign, and they were wonderful teachers. The other 2 were moved to an in-person school. These teachers would rather be online with their students. Now tell me how this is okay. Right now, IOPA has 1 teacher teaching kinder through 4th, and the other teacher teaching 5th through 8th. IOPA only has 2 teachers. This affects the children as well as the teachers. I know because I've seen it. I went through it. I have seen these students cry, asking why their teacher is not there anymore. Sorry. They have cried for their teachers as well as the teachers have cried for their students. It is heartbreaking. This is so extremely unfair for the teachers and the students and the families. They have been put in a position because of someone else's mistake. It is totally unfair. These teachers have been invaluable members of the community, bringing expertise, compassion, and unwavering dedication to student success. Their ability to inspire, educate, and support students has left a lasting impact, and their absence will be profoundly felt. I urge the school board to explore alternative solutions to keep IOPA available. We must ensure that all students, regardless of their circumstances, have access to the education that best suits their needs. Please consider the voices of students, parents, and educators who believe in the value of online learning. I stand in full support of Isaac Online Prep Academy, teachers, students, and the families. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Gabriela. Do we have a Gabriela? Madam President, that concludes the open call to the public.
Thank you. Next, we have enrollment. Our enrollment is 5,075. Our calendar, March 31st, 2025, Cesar Chavez Day, no school, April 10th, HRI Resource Day at the Wheels of Estrella Brillante Center of Learning. Our next governing board meeting will be held 5 p.m. on Thursday, April 17th at the Isaac Middle School Gym located at 3402 West McDowell Road, Phoenix, Arizona. On the following days, we will hold public meetings at the Isaac Middle School located at 3402 West McDowell. April 3rd, 5 p.m., public meeting at the Isaac School. April 24th, 5 p.m., public meeting and calls to the public at the Isaac School. And if I don't hear any objections, meeting adjourned. Thank you.